I never wanted to be a stepmom. I never dreamed of stepping into a broken family, picking up someone else's pieces, or getting caught in the middle of a bitter, never-ending war between a divorced couple. I was a simple, ordinary woman who had always believed that love should be quiet, gentle, kind, and completely unconditional. I lived a low-key, peaceful life with no drama, no conflict, and no messy family disputes. But the day I chose to marry Ethan, I walked straight into a terrifying real-life nightmare I could never have imagined in my wildest dreams. A nightmare that exploded into a chaotic, public spectacle in the busiest, most crowded shopping mall in our entire city. And every single bit of that chaos, shame, and drama all happened because one scared, overwhelmed little boy accidentally called me mom in a moment of pure panic. That one tiny, innocent word single-handedly ruined my peaceful life in an instant. His cruel, calculating birth mother instantly twisted the moment to turn hundreds of mall strangers completely against me. She screamed at the top of her lungs, faked broken tears, and put on the most dramatic, Oscar-worthy show for every stranger who stopped to watch. She publicly labeled me a homewrecker, a cold manipulator, and a terrible woman who brainwashes innocent young children just to steal another mother's rightful place. She pulled out her phone to record every second of the scene, edited out every bad part of her own behavior, and flooded social media with vicious lies that almost destroyed my personal reputation and my entire family's happiness for good. But what this fake, selfish mother never knew, not even for a single second, was that her gentle, quiet 8-year-old son had been silently hiding every single one of her dirty, shameful secrets for months. And on that chaotic, humiliating public day, he finally gathered all his courage to expose every last one of her disgusting lies for the entire world to see. Let me start this story from the very beginning, step by step, so you can fully understand every single detail of how cruel, twisted, and unbelievably unfair this entire situation truly was. Only then will you realize how brave my little stepson was, and how badly we were all wronged by a woman who pretended to be a perfect mom for clout and sympathy. My name is Clara. I am 35 years old. Long before I ever met Ethan or stepped into the complicated role of a stepmother, I had built a life that was entirely my own, stable, peaceful, and completely free of the chaotic family drama that would later consume my world. Growing up, I'd always valued calm and consistency. I'd watched too many people around me get torn apart by toxic relationships, messy breakups, and endless household conflicts, so I'd intentionally structured my adult life to avoid all of that unnecessary pain and stress. I worked a full-time administrative office job at a local community firm, a role that was predictable, low pressure, and paid me more than enough to cover all my monthly bills and personal expenses with plenty left over for savings. I owned a small, warm, one-bedroom apartment in a quiet, safe neighborhood on the outskirts of the city, with soft natural light streaming through the windows every morning, a cozy balcony lined with potted plants I tended to daily, and a living room that always smelled like fresh coffee and clean linen. It was humble, but it was mine, no fights, no drama, no uncertainty. In my free time, I kept things simple and gentle. I loved reading light, heartfelt novels on rainy weekends, baking homemade cookies and pastries for my close circle of childhood friends, and taking slow evening walks around the neighborhood lake to unwind after work. I had 3 best friends who'd been with me since high school, people who knew my personality, my boundaries, and my deep hatred for conflict and lies. We had monthly dinner nights, casual movie nights, and never involved each other in toxic or complicated situations. I was content with my quiet routine, genuinely happy living alone, and I had absolutely no rush or pressure to settle down, get married, or start a family. I'd seen how broken marriages could destroy people's mental health, ruin lives, and leave innocent children caught in the crossfire, so I was perfectly fine staying single and protecting my peaceful little bubble for as long as possible. That's exactly why Ethan stood out to me the moment we first met. We crossed paths completely by chance at a local community charity event, where we were both volunteering to pack food and school supplies for underprivileged kids in our city. While most other volunteers were busy socializing, taking photos for social media, or rushing through the work half-heartedly, Ethan was quiet, focused, and incredibly diligent. He spent hours carefully sorting notebooks, packing snack packs, and double-checking every bag to make sure no child would miss out on supplies. He knelt down to talk to every kid who wandered near the volunteer table, speaking to them with unbelievable gentleness and patience, never rushing them, never ignoring their small questions or shy requests. I watched him for nearly an hour before we finally struck up a casual conversation, and every single word he spoke was sincere, humble, and grounded. He didn't brag about his job, his income, or his achievements. He didn't try to impress me with empty flattery or fake charm. He simply talked about how much he loved volunteering, how he believed every child deserved kindness and support, and how he tried to teach his young son Leo the value of generosity and empathy from a very early age. That humble, genuine goodness was something I'd never seen in any other man I'd ever dated, and it immediately drew me to him. As we got to know each other better over coffee dates and casual weekend outings, I learned more about his life, his past marriage, and his experience raising Leo as a single dad. He never badmouthed his ex-wife unprovoked, never ranted about his struggles, never played the victim for sympathy. He simply told me the honest, unfiltered truth about his failed marriage, taking responsibility for his own shortcomings while calmly explaining the toxic patterns that had ultimately destroyed their relationship. He told me he'd stayed in the unhappy marriage for 2 extra years purely for Leo's sake, hoping he could fix things and give his son a 2-parent household. But after endless disappointment, repeated betrayal, and unresolvable conflict, he finally realized that a broken, hostile home was far worse for a child than a peaceful, happy single-parent home. What touched my heart the most was how Ethan spoke about Leo. Every story he told about his son was full of warmth, pride, and unconditional love. He talked about Leo's quiet personality, his love for dinosaurs and drawing, his gentle heart, and how smart and observant he was for such a young age. He told me he worked overtime constantly not for luxury or personal gain, but solely to build a stable future for Leo, to save up for his school fees, his future college tuition, and every small happy thing his son could ever want. He prioritized Leo's mental health above everything else, always made time for his son no matter how busy work got, and never missed a single school event, parent-teacher meeting, or weekend visitation even during his hardest, most stressful days. It was rare to meet a man who loved his child so selflessly, who put his kid's needs above his own happiness, and who carried fatherhood with such grace and responsibility. Every other man I'd known prioritized their career, their social life, and their own pleasure first. Ethan prioritized Leo first, always. That pure, selfless paternal love made me trust him deeply, and slowly but surely, my casual admiration turned into genuine, heartfelt love. I truly believe that if a man could love his child this fiercely and faithfully, he would love his partner the exact same way, loyally, gently, and unconditionally. I only agreed to date Ethan because he was different from every other man I had ever met. He was incredibly gentle, honest, humble, and hardworking beyond belief. He had no toxic habits, no hidden agenda, and no desire to play games with people's hearts. Most importantly, he loved his only son Leo more than anything in this entire world. He put his child's happiness and safety above his own wants, his own social life, and his own comfort. That pure, selfless kindness in his heart slowly but surely made me fall in love with him. I truly believe that a man who loved his child so deeply would be a loyal, loving, and devoted husband. Ethan had officially split from his ex-wife Nicole 4 full years before we crossed paths and started dating. Their marriage ended in the ugliest, most toxic, and most heartbreaking way you could possibly imagine, leaving permanent scars on both Ethan and their young son Leo. Their relationship had started like most ordinary romances, full of excitement and naive hope, but it began to unravel within just 1 year of their wedding. At first, it was small, subtle red flags that Ethan chose to overlook out of love and hope for their future, little lies about her whereabouts, sudden secretive behavior, constant excuses for missing family dinners, and a growing refusal to contribute to household responsibilities. Ethan was young and hopeful back then, fresh into marriage and determined to make it work. He believed every relationship had rough patches, that love could fix any problem, and that consistent effort would eventually make Nicole settle down and embrace her role as a wife and future mother. He worked long hours at his engineering job to provide for their household, paid all the rent, utility bills, and grocery expenses entirely on his own, and never asked Nicole for a single cent of financial support. He did all the cooking, all the cleaning, and all the household chores after his long work days, simply because he wanted Nicole to be comfortable and happy. He loved her wholeheartedly and gave her every possible chance to grow and change for the better. But Nicole never changed. Instead of appreciating Ethan's hard work, dedication, and endless patience, she took his kindness for weakness. She grew increasingly lazy, selfish, and ungrateful as the years went on. She stopped working entirely, refused to learn any household skills, spent all day scrolling through social media and shopping online, and went out partying with her friends multiple nights a week, often coming home late or not coming home at all. She stopped communicating with Ethan, stopped caring about their marriage, and started hiding more and more parts of her life from him. The first major heartbreak came when Ethan accidentally discovered she'd been cheating on him for over a year, long before Leo was even born. He found old text messages, hidden dating app accounts, and photos she'd taken with other men during her supposed girls' nights out. He was devastated beyond words. He'd given her everything, his trust, his loyalty, his money, his time, and his entire heart, only to be betrayed repeatedly behind his back. Even after confronting her with undeniable proof, Nicole showed zero remorse, zero guilt, and zero apology. Instead, she flipped the script entirely, accusing Ethan of being too boring, too work-obsessed, and too unromantic, claiming his neglect of her was the reason she'd strayed. Despite the devastating betrayal, Ethan still tried to salvage their marriage, especially after Nicole found out she was pregnant with Leo. He wanted his child to have a complete family, and he clung to the hope that motherhood would mature Nicole, that she would finally settle down and take responsibility for her family. He forgave her cheating, overlooked her selfish behavior, and devoted all his energy to preparing for their baby's arrival. He decorated the nursery from scratch, bought all the baby supplies, attended every prenatal appointment with her, and took time off work to care for her throughout her entire pregnancy. But motherhood never changed Nicole, not even a little bit. From the very day Leo was born, she showed almost zero maternal instinct. She hated the sleepless nights, the constant feeding schedules, the messy diapers, and the responsibility that came with having a newborn baby. She complained non-stop about how motherhood ruined her body, her social life, and her freedom. She refused to wake up at night to soothe Leo, refused to bathe him or change his clothes, and refused to stay home to care for him. Ethan took on 100% of the newborn care work while still working full-time to support their family. He woke up every 2 hours at night to feed Leo, bathed him, changed him, comforted him through fussy fits, and handled every single parenting duty alone. As Leo grew older, Nicole's neglect only worsened. She continued spending all her free time shopping, partying, and socializing, leaving tiny Leo in Ethan's care 24/7. She rarely played with her son, rarely hugged him, rarely asked about his mood or his day. She only interacted with Leo when she wanted to take cute photos for her social media, posing with him briefly for clout before handing him right back to Ethan and going back to her own selfish activities. The final breaking point came when Leo turned 4 years old. Ethan came home early from work one day to find the front door unlocked, the house empty, and 4-year-old Leo home alone, sitting on the floor crying, hungry and scared. Nicole had left him unattended for over 3 hours to go on a spontaneous shopping trip with her new boyfriend, with no note, no babysitter, and no regard for her small child's safety. That terrifying moment opened Ethan's eyes completely. Nicole would never change, she would never be a responsible mother, and keeping Leo in that unstable household was putting his child's safety and mental health at serious risk. Ethan filed for divorce immediately after that incident, refusing to waste any more years of his life or risk Leo's well-being for a broken marriage. The divorce process was brutal and toxic from start to finish. Nicole fought dirty every single step of the way, lying to lawyers, lying to court officials, and painting Ethan as an abusive, absent father to fight for partial custody and maximum child support payments. She knew exactly how to manipulate the legal system and public opinion to her advantage, even though every single bit of her story was fabricated and false. In the end, the court granted Ethan primary physical custody of Leo, seeing clear evidence of Nicole's neglect and irresponsible behavior. But the judge still awarded Nicole legal joint custody and scheduled monthly visitation rights, plus a hefty monthly child support payment from Ethan, simply because she was Leo's biological mother. No amount of evidence at that time was enough to strip her of her parental rights, no matter how poorly she treated her own child. Leo was only 4 years old when they finalized their messy, bitter divorce. Ever since that heartbreaking day, this poor little kid had been forced to bounce back and forth between two completely opposite homes, two vastly different lifestyles, and two parents with polar opposite personalities. At Ethan's house, he had love, stability, routine, care, and safety. At Nicole's house, he had chaos, neglect, inconsistency, loneliness, and zero structure. It was a cruel, unfair lifestyle for such a small, innocent child to endure, and it shaped his quiet, anxious personality long before I ever entered his life. From the very first day I met Leo, my heart absolutely shattered for this poor, overlooked child. I'd prepared myself to meet a typical 8-year-old kid, loud, playful, curious, unafraid to ask for what he wanted, quick to laugh, and prone to childish outbursts and small tantrums. All the kids I'd ever known were fearless and carefree, spoiled with love and attention from both parents, never worrying about food, clothes, or adult conflict. But Leo was nothing like those kids. He was so quiet, so shy, overly polite, and way too mature and careful for his young age, carrying the weight of adult stress and family conflict on his tiny shoulders. Our first meeting was at a local weekend park near our neighborhood. Ethan had told Leo gently that he was bringing a nice friend to meet him, and Leo had agreed softly, but he was clearly nervous and hesitant from the moment we arrived. While every other kid his age ran around the playground screaming, chasing each other, climbing slides, playing on the swings, throwing tantrums over toys, and begging their parents for ice cream and snacks, Leo stood quietly by Ethan's side the entire time. He never ran off to play, never asked for treats, never spoke unless spoken to, and never dared to ask for a single thing from anyone. He watched the other kids play with a quiet longing in his eyes, but he never joined in. He was too scared to be loud, too scared to draw attention to himself, too scared to accidentally misbehave and upset an adult. He walked on constant eggshells everywhere he went, terrified of causing even the smallest bit of trouble, terrified of making any adult angry or upset. It was clear from the very first minute that he'd spent his entire young life conditioning himself to be small, quiet, and unproblematic to avoid conflict and disappointment. I tried my hardest to make him feel comfortable that day. I brought him a small dinosaur toy I'd picked out specially for him after hearing Ethan talk about his obsession with all things prehistoric, and I spoke to him in a soft, slow, gentle voice, never rushing him or pushing him to interact. Most kids would have lit up at a new toy and thanked me excitedly, but Leo simply stared at the ground, whispered a tiny, quiet, "Thank you, ma'am," and clutched the toy tightly to his chest like it was a precious treasure he didn't deserve. His manners were perfect, almost too perfect for an 8-year-old child, and it broke my heart to see how reserved and insecure he was. As we sat on the park bench together, I watched his every move closely. When Ethan and I talked casually, Leo stayed completely silent, never interrupting, never adding to the conversation, never sharing his own thoughts or feelings. When a small child accidentally bumped into him while running past, Leo immediately stepped back and apologized first, even though it wasn't his fault at all. When we bought him a small vanilla ice cream cone, he ate it slowly and carefully, making sure not to spill a single drop, like he was afraid we'd get upset if he made a tiny mess. As the day went on, I learned just how deeply his childhood trauma ran. Ethan told me privately that Leo never threw tantrums, never complained, never cried over small hurts, and never begged for anything because he'd learned early on that wanting things only led to disappointment. At Nicole's house, every request he made was ignored or shot down. Every time he asked for new shoes, new school supplies, or even a simple snack, Nicole would snap at him, call him greedy and annoying, and tell him to stop bothering her. So Leo stopped asking entirely. He suppressed every single one of his own needs and desires just to keep the peace. At only 8 years old, he already knew how to comfort upset adults, apologize for things that weren't his fault, and suppress his own feelings just to keep the peace. On multiple early visits to our house, I watched him notice if Ethan or I was even slightly stressed or tired, and he would immediately soften his tone, clean up his own toys without being asked, and even offer to help wipe the table or tidy the couch to make us happy. He prioritized our comfort over his own joy, a trait no child should ever have to learn at such a young age. It was absolutely heartbreaking to watch a child lose his childhood so early in life. While other 8-year-olds only worried about games, toys, and school recess, Leo worried about whether he would eat that night, whether his clothes would fit, whether he would accidentally trigger an adult fight, and whether anyone would care for him when he was alone. He was gentle, kind, intelligent, and incredibly sweet, yet he'd been forced to grow up far too fast because of his mother's selfishness and neglect. In that moment, I made a silent promise to myself. I would never push him, never rush him, never make him feel like a burden. I would give him all the gentle, consistent love he'd never received, let him be a kid for once, and let him know that it was okay to want things, okay to make small messes, okay to be loud and happy, and okay to rely on someone for care and safety. Ethan opened up to me and told me every single terrible detail about Nicole very early on in our relationship, long before I ever officially met her or got involved in their co-parenting dynamic. He never spoke out of bitterness or anger, but simply to warn me so I would never be fooled by her perfect public persona and never get caught off guard by her manipulative tactics. He knew exactly how Nicole operated, having lived with her for years and fought her in court, and he wanted me to see the full, unfiltered truth behind her glamorous social media mask. He warned me repeatedly that Nicole was a master manipulator and an expert at putting on a perfect fake face for the public. She had spent years curating her online image to craft the persona of the most loving, devoted, selfless single mother on all her social media accounts. Every single post, every photo, every caption was carefully calculated to gain sympathy, praise, and admiration from strangers. She knew exactly what the public wanted to see: a hardworking, struggling single mom sacrificing everything for her adorable young son, fighting bravely through divorce hardship to raise her child alone. Her entire social media feed was a perfectly curated lie. She only posted bright, filtered photos where she was smiling warmly, holding Leo gently, or playing with him at the park. She wrote lengthy, emotional captions talking about single motherhood struggles, sleepless nights caring for her child, endless financial hardship, and how she gave up her youth, her dreams, and her freedom just to raise Leo alone. She posted fake stories about buying Leo new clothes, homemade meals, and expensive educational toys, talking about how she prioritized his growth and happiness above her own wants. Thousands of people followed her pages, showering her with compliments, sympathy, and praise. Strangers called her an angel, an amazing mom, a hero for raising her child alone. Other single mothers looked up to her and commented asking for parenting advice. She built an entire online brand and reputation based entirely on lies and fabricated hardship, gaining social clout, free brand collaborations, and even small sponsorships, all from her fake perfect mom persona. But behind closed doors, away from likes, comments, and public attention, her perfect persona crumbled completely. She was incredibly selfish, extremely lazy, and completely neglectful toward her own flesh and blood. She had zero genuine maternal love for Leo, zero patience for his needs, and zero willingness to sacrifice anything for his well-being. Her entire world revolved around herself, her appearance, her social status, and her new romantic relationships. After the divorce, Nicole wasted no time jumping back into the dating scene. She had multiple short-term flings before settling into a steady relationship with her new boyfriend, a young, wealthy man who spoiled her with gifts, shopping sprees, and fancy dates. From the moment she got this new boyfriend, Leo became nothing more than an inconvenient burden in her life, a small obstacle that got in the way of her glamorous, carefree lifestyle. That she only ever cared about her physical appearance, spending hours every day getting ready, doing her makeup, picking out designer outfits, and maintaining her social media aesthetic. She cared about her busy social life, attending parties, dinners, and weekend trips with her boyfriend and friends. She cared about her endless shopping sprees and luxury purchases, constantly upgrading her wardrobe, her accessories, and her lifestyle to keep up with social media trends. She never spared a single thought for Leo's physical health, his mental happiness, his daily needs, or his future well-being. She never checked his homework, never asked about his school grades, never attended his school events, never took him to the doctor when he was sick, never cooked him a single homemade meal, and never comforted him when he was upset. She ignored his hunger, overlooked his worn-out clothes, and brushed off all his basic needs as annoying nuisances that interrupted her perfect daily routine. What made her behavior even more unforgivable was how intentional her neglect was. It wasn't that she was poor, busy, or struggling, it was that she simply chose her own luxury over her child's survival every single time. She had more than enough money from Ethan's generous child support payments to give Leo a perfect, comfortable life, but she chose to spend every penny on herself instead. She knew exactly what she was doing, and she didn't care at all about the damage she was causing her young, vulnerable son. At first, I tried my hardest not to judge her too harshly. I knew co-parenting after a terrible divorce was never easy. I knew the stress of a broken marriage could change a person's behavior and mindset. I told myself repeatedly to stay neutral, to mind my own business, to avoid getting involved, and to only love Leo quietly and gently without ever overstepping any boundaries or interfering in their family affairs. To protect Leo's peace, to respect Nicole's position as his biological mother, and to avoid any possible drama, I made 3 strict, non-negotiable rules for myself the exact moment I officially became Leo's stepmom. My first rule was simple and unbreakable: would never, under any circumstance, force or encourage Leo to call me mom. I would always gently remind him that Nicole was his one and only biological mother, and I was just Clara, the person who loved him, cared for him, and supported him unconditionally. My second rule was to never badmouth, criticize, or speak negatively about Nicole in front of Leo. No matter how terrible, selfish, or cruel her actions were, I never wanted Leo to feel guilty for loving his own mother. I never wanted to put him in a position where he had to choose sides or feel conflicted about his own family. My third rule was to never interfere in their ongoing co-parenting conflicts. I would always stay quietly in the background, take good care of Leo in my own gentle way, and let Ethan handle all the complicated adult problems, arguments, and legal disputes on his own. For 3 whole, long, consistent years, I stuck strictly to these 3 rules without a single mistake, without a single slip-up, and without a single moment of overstepping boundaries. I dedicated myself fully to being a quiet, safe, loving presence in Leo's life, nothing more, nothing less. I never once crossed the line, never sought public credit, never chased after Leo's affection for validation, never bragged about the care I provided, and never tried to replace Nicole in any way, shape, or form. My only goal was simple: give Leo the stable, loving home he deserved whenever he was with us, and let him grow up feeling safe, loved, and secure without any family conflict or loyalty guilt. Those 3 years were full of small, quiet, consistent acts of kindness that no one but Ethan and Leo ever witnessed. There were no grand gestures, no viral moments, no praise or recognition, just daily routine care, endless patience, and unconditional love for a little boy who'd never known stability. I learned Leo's every little habit, every fear, every favorite thing, and every small dislike, just to make his time with us as comfortable and happy as possible. I learned he was terrified of thunderstorms and loud wind noises, so every time bad weather hit, I would sit with him in his room, read him his favorite dinosaur books, and hold his hand until the storm passed. I learned he hated the dark, so I always kept a soft night light on in his bedroom, no matter how late we went to bed. I learned he loved drawing dinosaurs more than anything, so I constantly stocked his desk with new crayons, sketchbooks, and colored pencils to let him create freely. I learned he was shy about asking for snacks, so I always set out healthy fruits, cookies, and juice for him without him having to request anything at all. I adjusted my entire daily routine around Leo's visitation schedule. On the weeks he stayed with us, I woke up 30 minutes early every morning to prepare him a warm, nutritious breakfast: eggs, toast, fresh fruit, and milk, so he never had to start his day hungry. I packed his school lunch every single morning, making sure it was fresh, balanced, and full of his favorite foods. I ironed his school uniform, polished his shoes, and double-checked his school bag every day to make sure he never missed a single supply or assignment. After work every evening, my entire focus was on Leo. I put away my phone, ignored personal messages, and sat down with him to do homework patiently. Leo was a smart kid, but he struggled with focus sometimes after dealing with the stress of bouncing between 2 homes. I never rushed him, never scolded him for slow progress, and never grew frustrated with his questions. I walked him through every math problem, helped him practice his reading, and praised every small improvement to build up his shattered self-confidence. On weekends, we planned gentle, fun activities just for him, park visits, trip to the children's museum, movie nights with popcorn, baking cookies together, and long walks to look at the lake. We never did anything overly extravagant or expensive, we just gave him consistent, happy, predictable fun that he never got to experience at his mom's house. At Nicole's house, weekends were empty and boring, full of loneliness and neglect. At our house, weekends were full of laughter, warmth, and intentional quality time. I also paid close attention to his physical needs that he could never voice out loud. I noticed when his clothes started getting too small, and I quietly bought him new, well-fitted outfits in his favorite colors. I noticed his shoes were worn out, and I replaced them with new, comfortable pairs without hesitation. I noticed his school supplies were running low, and I restocked his backpack fully every single month. I never asked for anything in return, never mentioned these acts to anyone, and never expected Leo or Ethan to thank me. I simply did it because it was what any loving caregiver would do for a child in need. Most importantly, I gave him emotional safety that he'd never known before. I let him cry when he was sad, let him vent his small frustrations, let him be vulnerable without judgment. I told him every single day that he was safe with us, that he didn't have to be quiet and perfect all the time, that he could make mistakes, be loud, be happy, and be a normal kid. I repeatedly reassured him that none of his family's conflict was his fault, that he didn't have to carry the burden of keeping adults happy, and that he deserved love and care just like every other child. All I ever did was love Leo quietly and take excellent care of him every single time he came to stay at our house for visitation weekends and weekday visits. I stayed in my lane, respected every boundary, and dedicated myself solely to giving this poor neglected child the happy, stable childhood he deserved. While Leo was staying with us, he had absolutely everything a child could ever need. He had warm, fresh, home-cooked meals served to him every single day, no exceptions. He had clean, well-fitted clothes, brand new sturdy shoes, and a fully stocked backpack with every school supply he could possibly need. He had his own quiet, safe, cozy bedroom filled with toys, books, and everything that made him happy. I sat with him patiently every single night to help him finish his homework, no matter how late it got. I stayed up with him through every thunderstorm and every terrifying nightmare to hold him and calm his fears. I celebrated every single one of his small school victories, cheered for his tiny improvements, and comforted him immediately whenever he felt sad, upset, or lonely. I treated him exactly like my own child without ever trying to steal his mother's title or position in his life. But the second his visitation time ended and he had to go back to Nicole's house, everything good in his life instantly disappeared. The safe, warm, loving environment he had with us vanished completely, and he was forced back into a life of neglect, instability, and loneliness. Week after week, without fail, Leo came back to our house completely exhausted, visibly hungry, and deeply depressed. His clothes were always dirty, stained, way too small for his growing body, and worn out from overuse. His daily shoes had huge holes on the bottom soles, letting in cold air and dirt every time he walked. His school backpack was always completely empty, with no pencils, no notebooks, no coloring supplies, and no textbooks at all. More than once, I caught him secretly hiding extra food in his backpack, stashing small snacks quietly so he would have something to eat later when he went back to his mom's empty house. It was a heartbreaking habit he developed purely because he knew he would go hungry for days at a time with no one to feed him. Every single time I saw him doing this, my heart broke into a million tiny pieces. No child should ever have to worry about having enough food to eat. No kid should ever have to save snacks like it's a survival tactic. No 8-year-old should ever carry that level of stress and fear on their small shoulders. Ethan paid a very large, court-ordered child support payment to Nicole every single month without any delay, without any reduction, and without any complaint. He constantly worked overtime shifts, skipped his own lunch breaks, gave up his weekends, and sacrificed his own rest and comfort just to make sure Leo had every single thing he could ever need in life. The monthly child support amount was extremely generous, more than enough to fully cover Leo's daily food, brand new clothes, school fees, medical expenses, and all his daily necessities. It was more than enough money for one small child to live a comfortable, happy, stable life with zero worries. But Nicole never spent a single cent of that hard-earned child support money on Leo, not one. Instead, she spent every single dollar entirely on herself and her new boyfriend. She splurged on extremely expensive hair treatments, fancy luxury nail art, high-end designer clothes, brand-name luxury bags, and expensive fine dining dates with her new partner. She went on lavish weekend vacations, bought the latest expensive electronics, and lived a spoiled, luxurious, carefree lifestyle, all funded entirely by Ethan's child support money that was legally meant for Leo's care and well-being. And the absolute worst part of all of this, she posted every single second of her luxurious lifestyle online and pretended to be a poor, struggling, selfless single mother fighting hard for her child. Her social media pages were flooded with fake, perfectly staged family photos and emotional, misleading captions. She would take 1 or 2 quick pictures with Leo every few weeks just for content. She would write long, heartfelt posts about sacrificing everything she had for her son, about how hard single motherhood was, and how she struggled daily to provide for her child. She gained hundreds of sympathetic followers, all of whom praised her for being such a kind, devoted, amazing mother. Everyone online adored her and felt sorry for her. No one had any idea of the ugly truth hiding behind her perfect online persona. No one knew she was neglecting her own innocent son just to fund her own selfish, luxurious lifestyle. Ethan tried absolutely everything he possibly could to fix this terrible situation and get Nicole to care for their child properly. He messaged Nicole politely, respectfully, and repeatedly through their official co-parenting app. He sent her clear photos of Leo's broken shoes, his worn-out clothes, and his completely empty school bag. He offered multiple times to buy all of Leo's school supplies, clothes, and daily necessities himself so Nicole wouldn't have to spend a single penny. He begged her over and over again to take better care of their poor little boy and stop neglecting him. But no matter how nice or reasonable Ethan was, Nicole always twisted everything around and played the innocent victim perfectly. She constantly called Ethan cruel, heartless, cheap, and overly controlling. She falsely accused him of harassing her, of stalking her, of trying to ruin her reputation, and of manipulating their young son against her. She repeatedly threatened to take Ethan back to family court, claimed he was illegally interfering with her parental rights, and demanded even more child support money every single month, even though she was already wasting every penny she received. Ethan consulted multiple different family lawyers over the course of 2 entire years, begging for professional help, legal guidance, and any possible solution to save Leo from ongoing neglect. He spent hundreds of dollars on consultation fees, scheduled meeting after meeting, and poured all his free time and energy into fighting for his son's basic rights. He gathered every small piece of evidence he could possibly collect: photos of Leo's worn clothes and broken shoes, screenshots of his messages begging Nicole to care for Leo, receipts for all the child support payments he'd paid faithfully every month, and witness statements from family friends who'd seen Leo's poor living conditions after returning from Nicole's house. But every single lawyer told him the exact same devastating, heartbreaking news that left us feeling completely hopeless. The family court system operated strictly on hard, undeniable, official evidence, not personal observations, not witness stories, not obvious common-sense neglect. The court required direct proof that Nicole was intentionally misusing funds and actively neglecting Leo on a consistent basis, proof that could hold up in formal legal proceedings and stand against Nicole's skilled manipulation and lies. Nicole was far too careful and far too cunning to leave behind obvious legal evidence of her wrongdoing. She never posted her neglect online, never let anyone film her ignoring Leo, never admitted her actions in writing, and never slipped up in front of legal witnesses. She only performed her good mother act in public and saved all her selfish, neglectful behavior for the privacy of her own home, where no one could see or record it. Everything we knew about her abuse of child support funds and her neglect of Leo was true, tangible, and obvious to anyone who saw Leo's condition, but it was all circumstantial in the eyes of the law. It was simply one person's word against another's. Nicole was an experienced liar who knew exactly how to manipulate court proceedings, how to cry for judges, how to play the victim, and how to twist Ethan's good intentions into harassment and control. Every lawyer warned us that if we took the case to court without ironclad legal proof, Nicole would not only win the case, but she would also file counterclaims against Ethan, get even more child support money, and paint him as an abusive, harassing ex-spouse in official court records. The legal system could not help us, no matter how obvious the neglect was to us. We were trapped in a cruel, unfair loop. Ethan was forced to keep paying thousands of dollars every single month for Nicole's luxury lifestyle, while his own son suffered hunger, inadequate clothing, and lack of basic school supplies every time he stayed with his mother. We watched Leo deteriorate little by little with every passing month, growing more tired, more quiet, more anxious, and more withdrawn, and we had absolutely no legal power to stop it. We tried every alternative solution we could think of to work around the broken legal system. Ethan offered to switch the child support payment method entirely, offering to pay directly for Leo's school fees, doctor bills, clothing expenses, and grocery costs instead of giving Nicole cash. He offered to purchase every single one of Leo's necessities himself and deliver them to Nicole's door personally, so she had no room to misuse money. He even offered to limit her visitation rights voluntarily if she couldn't prove she was caring for Leo properly. But Nicole rejected every single fair solution outright. She refused to let go of direct cash payments, refused to let Ethan provide for Leo's needs directly, and threw massive fits every time Ethan suggested adjusting their co-parenting agreement. She claimed Ethan was trying to control her finances, trying to isolate her from her own son, and trying to punish her for being a single mother. She threatened legal action every single time Ethan tried to make a reasonable change to protect Leo's well-being. For 2 long, exhausting years, we fought a losing battle with no progress, no hope, and no justice. We watched Nicole live a richer, more luxurious life every single month, while our sweet little boy continued to suffer in silence. We felt helpless, powerless, and completely stuck in a never-ending cycle of unfairness and neglect. For the longest time, we truly thought we had no way out of this terrible, endless cycle. We thought Nicole would keep lying, keep wasting child support money on herself and her boyfriend, keep neglecting Leo's basic needs, keep manipulating the legal system and public opinion, and keep getting away with her horrible, unforgivable behavior forever. We thought we would spend Leo's entire childhood trapped in this unfair loop, powerless to protect him from his own mother's selfishness and cruelty. We'd lost all hope in the legal system, lost hope in public fairness, and lost hope that anyone would ever see through Nicole's perfect fake persona. We'd grown used to the endless disappointment, used to watching Leo suffer quietly, used to fighting and failing to get justice for him. Ethan often stayed up late at night feeling guilty and defeated, blaming himself for not being able to protect his son better, for not having the power to stop Nicole's ongoing neglect. That I comforted him every night, reminding him that he was the best father Leo could ever ask for, that he'd done everything humanly possible, and that none of this unfairness was his fault. But deep down, I also felt hopeless and frustrated. I loved Leo like my own child, and it tore me apart to watch him suffer in silence with no way to rescue him fully from his mother's mistreatment. But we were so wrong to give up hope. What neither Ethan nor I ever expected in a million years was that our quiet, gentle, sensitive 8-year-old Leo, our small, shy, overlooked little boy who never spoke up for himself, had been watching every single one of her selfish actions all along. He saw every single lie she told to Ethan, every wasteful purchase she made with his child support money, every dollar she stole from his care to fund her luxury dates and shopping sprees, and every moment she chose her own fun and comfort over her child's basic survival needs. He saw every time she ignored his hunger, every time she refused to buy him new clothes, every time she tossed his worn-out school supplies in the trash to make room for her new luxury bags, every time she lied online about being a devoted mother while leaving him lonely and neglected at home. He noticed every single unfair detail that adults struggled to prove in court, every single hidden secret that Nicole thought she'd buried forever. And most surprisingly of all, he had been quietly, bravely collecting solid, undeniable physical proof of all her wrongdoing for 5 long months, patiently waiting for the perfect right moment to expose his own mother's dirty secrets to the world and finally get the justice he'd been silently craving for years. But we were so wrong. What neither Ethan nor I ever expected in a million years was that our quiet, gentle, sensitive 8-year-old Leo had been watching every single one of her selfish actions all along. He saw every single lie she told, every wasteful purchase she made, every dollar she stole from his care, and every moment she chose her own luxury over her child's basic needs. And he had been quietly, bravely collecting solid proof for months, patiently waiting for the perfect right moment to expose his own mother's dirty secrets to the world. Leo was far too scared to speak up about his mom's behavior as a young child, and his fear was completely understandable. From the earliest age he could remember, he'd been caught directly in the middle of his parents' bitter, never-ending conflict. He'd watched his mom fight viciously with his dad countless times, scream and yell, lie and manipulate, and blame everyone but herself for her mistakes. He'd learned from a very young age that whenever anyone tried to call Nicole out on her lies or her neglect, it always triggered a huge, explosive, traumatic fight that tore the family apart and left everyone stressed and upset. Leo was a sensitive, empathetic child who hated conflict more than anything in the world. He could not stand to see people he loved fight, argue, or be angry at each other. Even when Nicole was cruel and neglectful to him, he still loved her as his mother, and he hated the idea of being the reason for another massive fight between his parents. He hated feeling like a burden, hated being the center of conflict, hated knowing that his words would split his family further apart. That he also feared direct retaliation from Nicole if he ever told anyone the truth about how she treated him. He'd seen how cruel and vindictive she could be when she was exposed or challenged. Whenever Nicole didn't get her way, whenever someone called her out, whenever she lost an argument, she took her anger out on the people around her, most often on Leo, the easiest, most vulnerable target with no voice to defend himself. When Leo was younger and had accidentally told Ethan about being hungry at his mom's house, Nicole found out and spent the entire next visitation weekend ignoring him completely, refusing to feed him snacks, refusing to speak to him, and snapping at him for being a snitch. She made his life miserable for days simply because he'd told the truth once. That terrifying experience taught Leo to stay quiet no matter how bad things got for him, to endure hunger and loneliness silently rather than trigger his mom's anger and face retaliation. So he kept every single painful secret completely to himself, bottling up all his fear, all his sadness, all his hunger, and all his frustration deep inside his small heart. He never told Ethan, never told me, never told his teachers, never told his friends, and never told any other family member. He endured months of neglect alone, with no one to comfort him or support him. But he was far too smart and observant to let her unfair actions go unrecorded forever. Even at 8 years old, he understood exactly what was happening. He knew his dad worked tirelessly to send his mom money for his care. He knew his mom was spending all that money on herself instead of him. He knew it was unfair, wrong, and cruel. And he decided, all on his own, that he was going to prove the truth one day. He started quietly collecting his mom's shopping receipts, her beauty salon bills, her luxury clothing invoices, her fancy restaurant proofs, her couple vacation booking confirmations, and her online shopping order screenshots that she carelessly left lying around her house or in her car. He snuck these papers one by one when Nicole wasn't looking, carefully folded every single one neatly to avoid creasing or damaging them, and carefully hid them in the deepest, most secret inner pocket of his favorite dinosaur backpack, the pocket no one ever checked, not Ethan, not me, not Nicole. He guarded that secret pocket like it held his most precious treasure, because in reality, it held his only hope for justice, his only way to prove he wasn't lying about his mom's unfair treatment, his only chance to finally be seen and believed by the world. For 5 entire months straight, he collected this life-changing evidence silently, bravely, and completely on his own, without a single ounce of adult help, guidance, or encouragement. Every time he returned from Nicole's house, he would quietly check his backpack to make sure his growing stack of proof was safe and hidden. Every time Nicole carelessly left a new receipt or luxury purchase bill behind, he would sneak it away and add it to his collection. He kept track of dates, remembered exactly what each purchase was for, and mentally matched every expensive splurge to the exact days after Ethan's monthly child support payments cleared Nicole's bank account. This was an unimaginably mature, brave act for an 8-year-old child. Most kids his age couldn't even keep track of their own toys or homework, let alone systematically collect evidence, track financial patterns, and plan a future exposure of their own mother's wrongdoing. But Leo did it flawlessly, with incredible patience, focus, and determination. No single adult told him to do it. Not Ethan, not me, not any teacher or family friend. No one coached him, no one guided him, no one helped him organize the papers or plan his reveal. He did it all by himself, driven purely by his own pain, his own frustration, and his own desperate desire for fairness. He was finally tired of going hungry every single night at his mom's house, tired of hiding snacks in his backpack just to survive, tired of wearing too small, worn out, stained clothes while his mom bought endless designer outfits. He was tired of having no pencils, no notebooks, no school supplies while his mom spent thousands on luxury hair and nail treatments. He was tired of watching his dad work himself to absolute bone exhaustion, skipping meals and rest to earn money for his care, only for every single penny to be wasted on his mom's selfish, wasteful, luxurious lifestyle. He was tired of being invisible, tired of being neglected, tired of being the only one suffering while his mom lived a perfect, carefree life off money meant for him. He was tired of watching his dad and I get falsely accused and slandered simply for loving and caring for him properly. Most of all, he was tired of staying silent and letting his mom's lies and unfairness win every single time. As time went on, Leo grew exponentially happier, brighter, and more relaxed every single time he stayed in our safe, loving home. But as Leo's joy increased, Nicole's bitter hatred and jealousy toward me kept growing stronger and more intense by the day. She noticed how calm and comfortable Leo was whenever he was with me. She saw how excited he got every single time visitation weekend was approaching. She watched how he laughed louder, spoke more freely, played more happily, and acted like a normal, carefree little kid only when he was staying with Ethan and me. She saw the massive difference in his behavior between our home and hers, and it filled her with pure resentment. Instead of reflecting on her own terrible parenting mistakes, instead of changing her selfish habits and starting to care for her child properly, she blamed me entirely for everything. She refused to take any responsibility for her own actions. She started spreading vicious, false rumors about me to every single one of her friends, family members, and social media followers. She told everyone that I was a manipulative, scheming stepmom. She lied and claimed I was intentionally brainwashing her innocent son, poisoning his mind against his real biological mother, and plotting to steal her child away from her forever to replace her completely. She spent months patiently waiting and watching, hoping and praying for one single tiny mistake from me. One small slip-up, one innocent moment she could twist and exaggerate to destroy my reputation, ruin my character, and paint me as an evil, terrible person in front of everyone. And that one tiny, innocent mistake she had been waiting months and months to catch finally happened on an extremely busy, crowded Christmas shopping Saturday right before the holidays. The entire shopping mall was absolutely packed to capacity. Hundreds and hundreds of holiday shoppers filled every single hallway, aisle, and walkway. Loud, festive Christmas music played non-stop over the overhead speakers. Families laughed, chatted, and shopped happily with their kids. The whole building was bright, bustling, chaotic, and full of holiday joy and energy. Ethan, Leo, and I had decided to head out that day to buy Leo a new pair of warm winter boots and a few small Christmas gifts to surprise him. It was supposed to be a happy, peaceful, simple family outing with zero conflict and zero stress. We walked around the mall calmly for over an hour, browsing stores, looking at festive decorations, and watching Leo light up with pure happiness the entire time. He was completely carefree, joyful, and relaxed, something he almost never got to experience at his mom's house. We were slowly walking past the busy food court area, our arms full of light shopping bags, fully ready to head home and end our perfect little outing, when we suddenly caught sight of Nicole out of the corner of our eyes. She was casually wandering the mall halls with her new boyfriend, dressed head to toe in brand new expensive designer clothes, carrying multiple luxury shopping bags full of new items she'd bought for herself. She was laughing loudly, smiling brightly, and acting like she had not a single worry or care in the entire world, completely oblivious to her neglected son's struggles. The exact second her eyes locked onto our small family, her bright, happy smile dropped off her face instantly. Her entire demeanor turned cold, hostile, and aggressive in the blink of an eye. She marched quickly and straight toward us, purposely stepping in front of us to block our path completely before we could turn around and walk away to avoid conflict. She didn't bother with any polite greeting, no small talk, no simple acknowledgement. She immediately started screaming loudly at the top of her lungs, making sure every single person walking nearby could hear every word she shouted. She yelled furiously at Ethan, aggressively demanding more monthly child support money. She complained dramatically that she could not afford Leo's basic living expenses, even though we all knew the truth. She threatened repeatedly to take Ethan back to family court and file new legal claims against him if he refused to give her even more money. Her voice was sharp, harsh, aggressive, and extremely dramatic. Every single person around us immediately stopped walking, turned around, and stared at our family. Dozens of curious strangers instantly pulled out their cell phones and started recording the explosive public scene, fully convinced they were witnessing a poor, struggling single mother fighting bravely for her helpless child. That loud, vicious, public confrontation terrified our gentle little Leo completely. Leo hated yelling and conflict more than anything else in the entire world. He hated unwanted public attention, hated seeing adults fight, hated knowing he was the center of any argument. His entire body tensed up in pure fear. His shoulders hunched tight, his breath quickened, and his eyes instantly filled with big, hot, frightened tears. Overwhelmed with panic, stressed beyond belief, and desperate to escape the terrifying public fight, he tightly grabbed onto my arm for safety and blurted out the first desperate words that popped into his scared little head. "Mom, can we please leave?" That was it. That was the one tiny, innocent slip-up Nicole had been waiting and hunting for months to catch. The single moment she planned to use to destroy my entire life and reputation. She exploded with uncontrollable rage on the spot. She instantly shifted all her anger and aggression away from Ethan and focused every bit of her hatred entirely on me. She raised her voice even louder than before, screaming so aggressively that every single shopper in the entire mall concourse could hear her false accusations crystal clear. "Finally. I have absolute proof. You have been brainwashing my innocent son this entire time. You manipulated him purposely into calling you mom. You turned him against his own real biological mother. You poisoned his young, vulnerable mind with endless lies just to make him reject me. You are a cruel, selfish, evil woman who is obsessed with stealing my child away from me forever." The surrounding crowd immediately began whispering, staring, and judging me harshly. Every cell phone camera was locked directly on me. Hundreds of strangers looked at me with disgust and judgment, fully believing I was a terrible homewrecker and a cruel child manipulator who preyed on innocent kids. I was completely shocked, stunned, and utterly humiliated in that moment. I had spent 3 entire years strictly respecting Nicole's boundaries, never overstepping, never seeking attention, never trying to replace her in any way. And yet I was being publicly shamed, villainized, and hated by hundreds of complete strangers for absolutely no reason at all. I gently pulled Leo behind my body to shield his teary, scared face from the crowd's stares and Nicole's aggressive anger. I kept my voice calm, steady, and polite as I tried my best to explain the innocent truth to the crowd. "Nicole, please calm down. He is just a scared little kid who's overwhelmed by your loud yelling. This is nothing but an innocent accident. I have never once told him to call me mom. I have always corrected him gently and respected you fully as his birth mother." But Nicole refused to listen to a single word of reason. She was far too busy performing her fake victim act for the crowd and the rolling cameras. She knelt down directly in front of my teary, terrified stepson and pressured him aggressively in front of the entire public audience. "Leo, tell everyone the real truth right now. What terrible lies has this woman told you about me? Do you hate your real mother now? Do you want this random stranger to replace me in your life forever?" For a long, tense, heart-wrenching second, Leo froze and hesitated. Hot tears streamed quickly down his small face. He glanced back and forth between his furious mom, my calm, supportive face, and the massive crowd of strangers staring intently at him, waiting for his answer. Every single person watching fully expected him to apologize to Nicole, to deny me, and to admit that I had manipulated and brainwashed him. But every single last one of them was completely wrong. That poor little boy had stayed silent and suffered in quiet pain for far too long. He had watched me love him, care for him, and treat him with pure kindness every single day for years. He had endured months of his mom's selfish lies, her wasteful spending, and her cruel neglect. He had watched me get falsely accused, publicly shamed, and viciously attacked for no reason whatsoever in front of a huge crowd. And in that powerful moment, he finally had enough of staying quiet and letting injustice win. Leo quickly wiped his streaming tears away with his small sleeve. He took off his beloved dinosaur backpack, unzipped the main compartment, and reached deep down into his secret hidden pocket where he'd stored all his evidence. One by one, slowly and bravely, he pulled out every single crumpled receipt, every service invoice, every shopping proof, and every online order screenshot he had carefully saved for 5 long months. He spread every piece of undeniable evidence neatly on top of our shopping bags for the entire silent mall crowd to see clearly. The entire bustling mall went completely dead silent in an instant. Not a single person spoke, walked, or made a sound. Everyone was frozen in shock, waiting to hear what this brave little boy had to say. Leo's small voice shook slightly from leftover fear and emotion, but he spoke loud, clear, and confidently enough for every single person in the surrounding area to hear every word perfectly. Dad gives you lots of child support money every single month. You spend every last bit of it on your hair, your fancy clothes, and your boyfriend. You never spend any money on me. You never buy me food, new shoes, or school supplies. I go hungry at night a lot of the time. My clothes are always too small and worn out. I saved all these papers all by myself. Clara never told me to lie. She never said anything bad about you. She only ever takes good care of me and loves me. Every single piece of paper laid out before the crowd was 100% undeniable, irrefutable proof of Nicole's lies and neglect. All the receipts were clearly dated just days after Ethan's monthly child support payments were deposited into Nicole's bank account. They showed thousands of dollars wasted on luxury salon services, high-end designer shopping, fancy couple dinners, and expensive weekend vacations with her boyfriend. There was zero evidence of any money spent on Leo's food, clothing, school supplies, or medical needs whatsoever. Nicole's face turned completely pale white in a split second. Her loud, furious yelling stopped instantly. Her confident, fake victim act crumbled completely to pieces in front of every single watching stranger. She panicked immediately and tried to lie her way out of her public downfall. These are all old papers. You're misunderstanding everything. Your dad and Clara coached you to say these lies about me. But Leo shook his head firmly and calmly listed exact specific dates and precise moments of neglect that no adult could have possibly coached him on. His story was consistent, genuine, and completely unscripted. The entire crowd instantly turned completely against Nicole. All the cell phones that had been recording to expose me just moments before were now fully focused on capturing Nicole's humiliating public downfall. The crowd's whispers shifted from judgment toward me to pure shock, anger, and disappointment toward her. Cornered, embarrassed, exposed, and completely defeated with nowhere left to run, Nicole had no more lies left to tell. She harshly grabbed her boyfriend's arm and rushed away from the crowd as fast as she could, running away from all the witnesses and leaving every single one of her shameful lies exposed in public. The second Nicole disappeared from sight, Leo's brave, strong facade crumbled completely. He broke down into loud, relieved, exhausted tears in my arms. All the months of hidden stress, silent fear, lonely hunger, and suppressed trauma he had carried alone for so long finally poured out. I held him tightly in my arms, comforting him gently while the crowd slowly dispersed, most people giving us warm, sympathetic, supportive looks of understanding. We left the mall that day with heavy, emotional hearts, overwhelmed with relief, sadness, and empathy for Leo, but with the entire truth firmly on our side and solid, undeniable proof of Nicole's cruelty, deception, and ongoing neglect. We were proud of Leo for his incredible bravery, but our hearts ached endlessly for the months of silent suffering he'd endured alone, all the pain and fear he'd bottled up inside his small body just to survive his mother's neglect. On the car ride home that day, Leo sat quietly in the back seat, staring out the window with tired, red eyes. He didn't speak much, but he held my hand tightly the entire drive, never letting go for a single second. It was like he was finally letting himself relax, finally letting himself feel safe after months of constant fear and tension. We didn't push him to talk, didn't bombard him with questions, didn't make him relive the traumatic public scene any more than he already had. We simply let him rest, let him feel our quiet support, and let him know he was safe and loved. When we got home, I made him his favorite warm pasta dinner, baked him chocolate chip cookies, and let him watch his favorite dinosaur cartoons on the couch while I wrapped him in a soft blanket. We gave him all the quiet comfort he needed, no pressure, no attention, no questions, just pure, gentle love. That night, Leo slept in my room on a small mattress beside our bed for the first time ever, too scared to sleep alone after the traumatic public confrontation. He finally felt safe enough to let his guard down completely, no longer needing to be brave or perfect for anyone. We thought that after Leo's public exposure, after the entire mall witnessed Nicole's lies and neglect, she would finally back down, finally admit her mistakes, finally leave our family alone and start taking proper care of Leo. We hoped she would feel remorse, finally mature, and start prioritizing her son's well-being over her own selfish desires. We hoped the public humiliation would teach her a lasting lesson and force her to change her toxic ways. But we were completely wrong. Nicole's pride, selfishness, and vindictive hatred for me ran far deeper than we ever could have imagined. She was not sorry for neglecting her son. She was not sorry for wasting child support money. She was not sorry for lying to the public or shaming our family. The only thing she was sorry for was getting caught, losing her perfect public reputation, and losing control of the false narrative she'd built for years. She was furious, embarrassed, and bitter, and she was determined to get revenge on our family by any means necessary. She refused to accept defeat gracefully. Instead of reflecting on her terrible actions, she doubled down on her lies, escalated her harassment, and prepared to destroy our family completely in retaliation for her public humiliation. She spent every single day after the mall incident plotting revenge, editing footage, crafting new fake stories, and preparing false legal claims to take down Ethan and me. She had no shame, no conscience, and no maternal instinct holding her back. All she cared about was restoring her fake perfect reputation, getting revenge for her public embarrassment, and making our family suffer the way she'd suffered from public judgment. She was willing to lie under oath, falsify claims, and continue victimizing her own child just to win her petty, bitter war against us. Unfortunately for us, Nicole was far from done harassing our family and trying to destroy our lives. Just 3 short days after her humiliating public exposure, she filed a serious, false court case against both Ethan and me. She purposely used only the clipped, edited video snippet of Leo calling me mom, completely cutting out every single second of her own exposure, her lies, and her neglect. She falsely accused me of severe parental alienation and intentional child brainwashing. She reposted her fake, one-sided story all over every social media platform again, painting herself as a poor, betrayed, victimized mother and me as an evil, manipulative, child-stepping stepmom. But this time, we were fully prepared with irrefutable proof and zero fear. We submitted every single piece of Leo's collected evidence, Ethan's years of full child support payment records, and the complete unedited mall video footage to our trusted family lawyer. We also officially requested a neutral, professional child therapist to interview Leo one-on-one in a safe, private, unbiased environment with no family present. During his professional therapy interview, Leo told his entire painful story consistently, calmly, and truthfully without any hesitation or coaching. The licensed therapist officially confirmed that Leo's testimony was 100% genuine, completely uncoerced, and that he had suffered long-term emotional stress and physical neglect from living in Nicole's household. When our official court hearing began, the judge reviewed every single piece of our evidence with extreme care and thoroughness. The judge completely dismissed all of Nicole's false parental alienation claims and vicious accusations against me. He officially ruled that Nicole had willfully, knowingly, and repeatedly misused court-ordered child support funds and criminally neglected her own child for months on end. He completely restructured the entire child support payment system to ensure Nicole could never directly touch the money meant for Leo ever again. All future child support payments would be managed strictly by a neutral third-party trustee and only spent on Leo's verified, essential needs. The judge ordered Nicole to complete mandatory professional parenting classes and financial counseling courses to fix her toxic, neglectful habits. He issued a strict official warning that any future lies, false court claims, or child neglect would result in immediate permanent loss of her custody and visitation rights. After years of struggle, pain, unfair treatment, silent suffering, and endless fighting, we finally won the honest, well-deserved justice our small, loving family had spent years fighting for. The cruel, unfair cycle of neglect, manipulation, and false accusation was finally broken for good. We no longer had to watch Leo suffer in silence, no longer had to watch Nicole waste his child support money on luxury goods, no longer had to fear her false legal claims and public slander. The entire stressful weight we'd carried on our shoulders for 3 long years lifted completely off our chests the day the judge finalized the court ruling. We were finally free from Nicole's toxic manipulation, free from her endless harassment, free from the unfair legal system that had once protected her wrongdoing. Most importantly, Leo was finally protected, finally safe, and finally free from the fear and neglect that had haunted his early childhood for far too long. Ethan broke down crying after the court hearing ended, overwhelmed with relief and gratitude. He'd spent years feeling helpless, guilty, and powerless to protect his son, and he finally got to see justice served for Leo's long-term suffering. He hugged Leo tightly for a long time, whispering quiet apologies for every hard day his son had endured, and promising him that he would never have to suffer neglect or loneliness ever again. I stood beside them, tears in my eyes, feeling endless gratitude that our quiet, consistent love and patience had finally prevailed over Nicole's fake persona and selfish manipulation. All the years of staying in my lane, respecting boundaries, loving Leo quietly, and refusing to engage in drama had not been in vain. Goodness and kindness truly did win in the end. In the months following the life-changing court ruling, Leo slowly but surely healed from all his past trauma, little by little every single day. The transformation in his personality was absolutely incredible to witness, a beautiful reward for all our years of patience and love. He completely stopped hoarding food for survival, no longer stashing snacks in his backpack out of fear of going hungry. He no longer flinched at loud noises or adult arguments, no longer tensed up at the sound of raised voices, no longer lived in constant fear of conflict and chaos. He started laughing freely and loudly for the first time in his life, laughing like a normal, carefree child with no hidden stress or trauma weighing him down. He started making new friends at school quickly, opening up to his teachers and classmates, talking freely and confidently instead of staying quiet and reserved. His school grades improved drastically, his focus returned, and he began excelling in his studies, finally able to dedicate his energy to learning instead of surviving emotional stress and neglect. He started acting exactly like every other normal 8-year-old kid. He began asking for toys and snacks without fear, throwing small playful tantrums when he was tired, running and screaming and playing loudly around the house, drawing endless dinosaur pictures to hang on our walls, and talking non-stop about his favorite cartoons and games. He finally got to experience a real, happy, stable childhood, one he'd been robbed of for years by his mother's selfishness. He grew far more confident, secure, and outgoing with every passing month. He no longer walked on eggshells around adults, no longer apologized for small mistakes that didn't matter, no longer suppressed his own feelings to keep others happy. He learned that it was okay to be a kid, okay to be happy, okay to rely on others for love and care, and okay to prioritize his own joy. We took him to the children's therapist for a few months after the court ruling to help him fully process his past trauma, and the therapist confirmed incredible progress every single session. Leo's anxiety levels dropped drastically, his fear of abandonment faded, and he finally built healthy emotional security that he'd never had before. He healed faster than any of us could have hoped for, thriving in the stable, drama-free, loving home we'd built for him. I still never force Leo to call me mom, and I still gently correct him if he slips up in public out of habit or comfort, always making sure to honor Nicole's biological status and never overstep any boundaries. I still stick to my original 3 rules in public settings, respecting every line to avoid any possible conflict or unfair narrative. I never seek titles, never seek credit, never seek public recognition for the care I provide him. But in the safe, private comfort of our loving home, where there are no cameras, no public opinions, no fake personas, and no drama, Leo knows full well the truth of who loves him unconditionally. He knows I am the person who stays up with him at night when he's scared, who comforts him when he's sad, who celebrates every small win with him, who feeds him warm meals every day, who buys him everything he needs, and who loves him steadily and faithfully without any hidden agenda or selfish motive. He knows I never use him for social media clout, never post his photos for likes, never lie about our relationship for public sympathy, never manipulate him for my own benefit, and never prioritize my own luxury and happiness over his basic needs. He knows my love for him is quiet, consistent, genuine, and unchanging, far more real than any fake public motherhood persona Nicole ever displayed online. He doesn't need to call me mom publicly to know the truth in his heart. Love isn't defined by a single title or a public label. It's defined by daily care, consistent presence, endless patience, and unconditional sacrifice. And that's exactly what I've given him every single day since I entered his life. Nicole learned an extremely hard, embarrassing, unforgettable lesson on that chaotic mall day, a lesson she will carry with her for the rest of her life. She learned that fake personas, public lies, and manipulative victimhood can only take you so far. You can fool strangers online, fool social media followers, fool distant family members, and even fool the broken legal system for a long time. But you can never fool the small child who lives with your true character every single day that you can absolutely fake a perfect, loving motherhood life online. You can stage hundreds of perfect photos, write thousands of emotional fake captions, fabricate endless stories of sacrifice and hardship, and fool all your friends, followers, and family members with your curated lies. You can manipulate social media platforms, twist public opinion to your favor, lie to court officials, and manipulate the legal system for a very long time to protect your selfish lifestyle. You can hide your neglect, your greed, and your cruelty behind a pretty face and a charming public persona for years on end. Children see absolutely everything. They remember every single lie you tell, every empty fridge they stare into, every broken promise you make, and every moment you choose yourself over them. They stay quiet for months and years not because they are ignorant or unaware, but purely because they love you and hate conflict. Nicole spent months patiently waiting and plotting to expose one tiny innocent mistake of mine to ruin my life. But she never in a million years expected her own quiet, gentle, loving little son would be the one to stand up in front of a crowded mall full of strangers and completely expose her entire fake, perfect mother persona for the fraudulent lie it truly was. If you truly believe that consistent kindness, genuine love, and quiet goodness will always beat fake personas, public lies, and selfish manipulation, leave a like and subscribe to our channel. This is the raw, real family drama no one wants to believe exists, but everyone needs to see. Thank you so much for staying with us till the end, and I will see you in our next heartfelt real-life story.